with Tim Tam, where you learn how to mind your own business.
Hey, good morning, D Dipple. How are you, man?
Buddy, I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I am doing great. I'm really stoked about today's conversation because it's regarding domain names. So we'll wait a second, see if a few people will come on. But really stoked about this. This comes from a few people asking me about domain names and, of course, NFTs and stuff. There's some things I know. I know enough about like crypto and NFT. I'm not in the market. I know you are. We're not going to talk about that. Today's all about domain names. And I'm getting another error. Hang on a minute. Let's see what's going on here. Nope, I'm good. So that's what we're going to talk about is domain names and the power of a domain name. We're going to talk about registry. Even if you know, like I know, Tim, I go to GoDaddy, I find a domain name, I buy a domain name. I'm first of all going to talk about some of the things that you need to know and be aware of. And then I'm also going to talk about all of the things you really need to know about the domain names and why I love them so much. And why I believe that it's been a hidden NFT right along, or what's like an NFT, if you will. So if you know what an NFT is, kind of like what that looks like. So we're going to talk about that. And some of you are going to be very surprised, probably even you, D, going to be very surprised about some of the things that we're going to discuss. What domain names, like, what do you mean that a domain name could be an actual investment? We're going to talk about that. I'm probably more excited about domain names than a lot of stocks. Just saying. I have a big portfolio of domain names. I've been offered money. I think we got offered 10,000 for one domain that I'll talk about. That was a few years ago. They went up to about 30,000. I still said no. I still own the domain name and I still don't have a website on it. We'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk about, you know, obviously investments, there's always risk, but think about this. When you purchase a domain name, how much are you spending?
Well, I mean, it all depends, but usually $6, $7, $8, $9, something like that. You know, on the low end. You know.
Absolutely. So even of those that are tuning in, feel free to leave a comment, or if you have a question, we're talking about domain names, why they're so important, especially now. They always have been, but like now, why a lot of people have been missing this. This has been like an NFT for years, but a lot of people have missed it. And now something's happening with domain names that is going to really bring the value up. We're going to talk about that. Like, this is, a lot of people don't know this stuff. Even if you know, like, I know how to buy a domain name and all that good stuff, you're going to learn a lot today. And more importantly, you're going to see the power of what a domain name can do for you. So let's dive right in. A domain name, first of all, there's only one company that issues them, right? And it's ICANN. So if you go to Namecheap, I own HostFox. We're making a deal now to where you can buy domain names right at HostFox. You could do everything, hosting, domain names, all of that good stuff right there. HostFox. We'll explain why. And by the way, you don't have to go with our company. You could go with, there's multiple other companies. There's some I don't care for because they're hijacking domain names. You and I have talked about this. It's happened to you and I.
Right. No, it sure did.
So let's talk about domain. I'm going to actually bring some.
I think we lost him. There he is.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Click the wrong button. Hey, we're live. So,
right.
And by the way, too, you know, for anyone that's watching, you got to get out there, man. You just you're going to break things. You're going to fall off of a live. Who cares? You just keep going. The new way today is you just go. You don't worry about breaking things. You learn as you go. Okay, so let's just go. I'm going to click the right button now. By the way, there's a fail. They have this button way too close to me bringing things up. Okay, so let's talk about, first of all, this comes from Business Week. Okay, how much is a domain name worth? We're going to talk about that. And this is where the confusion is, because on Saturday's call, they're like, well, Tim, I can get a domain name for like $7.
Right.
I think it's more like 9, but regardless, right?
Right.
I said, well, yeah, I get that. But here's the thing. If you can still buy a really good name for that, we're going to talk about that. Like, you might want to pay 10 grand for a domain name. You just might. We're going to talk about why that is. So if you have a question regarding domain names, or maybe you already own some and you don't know what to do, and feel free to ask a question. If anything that has to do with domain and hosting, all that, feel free to do that. That's our conversation. But today we're going to talk about how domain names are like an NFT. They were kind of like, it was always there, but nobody was really paying attention to it. I've been seeing this right along. Like, once again, I'll say it. We've had multiple domain names where we've been given offers. I know a past business partner. He purchased a domain name, and literally weeks later, somebody out of the blue wanted to start this company and offered him $20,000, and he sold it for $20,000. Yes, you can sell a domain name for 20 grand. So real quick, let's just talk about, I wish I had the slides. They're on a different computer. I haven't migrated them over to the Mac. So another day, we're going to go a little deeper with this in the Link Boss group. So if you're not a member, feel free to become a member. Just go to, it's LYNK. We'll put it up in the comments, and I'll bring it on the screen later. But here's the deal. You buy a domain name. Now, so let's read this. Realistically, domain names can be worth any amount of money. Most domain names sell for around $5,000 to $20,000. Think of that for a moment. You invest, and by the way, this is not like investment strategy. We're just talking today, and I'm pointing something out that's in front of all of us that a lot of people are missing. You buy a domain name, your risk is the $9 you got into it. But know this, so you got to renew it every year.
Right.
So I'm going to come back to that.
That's
something surprising is happening now that a lot of people don't know. So once again, I own HostFox. So if we become a reseller of domain names, we would go to ICANN, and then it comes in, and then we sell them, right? Some companies sell domain names for more than other companies. Realistically, you're renting them. A lot of people don't know that. When you get a domain name, like I have myname.com, and for everyone that's listening to me right now, please do this. Please do this. Get yourname.com. Hopefully you already have it. But get your kidsname.com. Get your grandkidsname.com. If you can get it. If you've got a name like John Anderson, it's going to be tough. But if you can get it, get it. We'll talk about why you need that, but you're going to need it. That's first. You're never going to sell that one. You're going to lock that up. You want to lock that name up. So get it. And we're going to talk about other things that you could do that's really going to move the needle here. Other groups that you should, or other apps that you should be involved with. But going back to ICANN. So you got ICANN. That's the police of domain names. So they're the one that issues out all domain names. Then you got GoDaddy, Namecheap, Bluehost, all of them, HostFox, that gets those domain names. And if you search a domain name and it's available, you can now rent the domain name. A lot of people use the word purchase, and even the hosting companies call it purchase. But in reality, you're renting that domain name. Now, here's what's cool. You can now own the domain name. You can now buy a domain name and actually own it. You pay a price, you're done. You're no longer having to renew. You no longer are renting. We're going to go deeper on that inside Link Boss, the group. Remember, Link Boss is LYNK. We'll go deeper as to why you want to do that. But here's the deal. If you get a really good domain name, I'm going to give you one that I was offered. I was originally offered 10,000. I think it was 7. Then it went to 10. Then it went to 30,000, and it's sardiniandiet.com. That's it, dude. Like, nobody else can have sardiniandiet.com. We own it, right? So if somebody's writing a book about it, if somebody's got a program regarding it, because as you know, I'm obsessed with diet and I'm obsessed with longevity. I was studying and I listened to Dr. Weil, and goes all the way back to 2008. Dr. Weil was on TV, and he mentioned Sardinia, and he mentioned kind of like what's called the blue zones now. Back then, it is what it is. He was the first to really dive into this, and he mentioned Sardinia. And me being a tech nerd, I'm like, I wonder if that's available. So and it was, and I'm like, what? How could this doctor be talking about this? And he didn't grab the domain name. So for those of you who are watching, mistake number one, you're coming up with a product. You're coming up with a product idea and you don't secure the name.
Right.
And if you can't get .com, we'll go deeper on that too. But if you can't get .com, you may want to consider another name, because most people go to .com, just so you know. Now, if there's no website there, and know this, you can always try to get a domain name. You can always try to buy it. So you're going to see auction sites out there. We just bought one. Unfortunately, we paid for a domain name, and unfortunately, it was misspelled. Do you know what I'm talking about? Don't mention it, by the way. But it was misspelled, and I'm like, oh my God. But it is what it is. We'll still use it. But I'm now after the actual domain name, and that's how that works. So we're going to talk about right now. So right now, a really good domain name right now can be worth anywhere between 5 and 20. But know this, a lot of them are selling more than that.
I mean, it's amazing, because I know, like, for if you do have a product, then you also want to do, like you get the one domain name you want, per se. You still want to own a couple of variations around that, so no one can even add a letter, subtract a letter, that kind of stuff, just just to protect yourself as well.
Plus, it makes the value of your domain name go up.
Right.
You can sell all of them as a package. You can sell them individually.
Right.
A lot of times they're going to want all of them. So let's talk about some of them. And there's a ton that aren't even here. Oprah, I think, paid, I don't know, 5 to 7 million for her name because some kid had it. I know business.com sold for 7 million, and then they built a website on it and they sold that for 350 million. And now who knows what that's worth? It's business.com, right?
Right.
I know of somebody in the industry that gifted a domain name. The person wanted $1 million, which, by the way, it was worth that. And they didn't want to pay that. And it was Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi.
Yep.
And Russell's on an airplane, Russell Brunson. He ends up buying it for like 600,000. So do you think that was a pretty decent windfall for that person that probably purchased that domain name like 2 years ago or a year ago? Like, seriously?
Right. Oh, yeah.
It's mastermind.com, by the way. I'll throw that out there. So he's paid $600,000 for it, gifts it to them, which was brilliant. A lot of people would say, why would you do that? Now he's on the radar. They made him a partner. You can only imagine what that's going to do.
Right.
Sometimes you got to think ahead, right? You got to be outside of the box. So let's look at this. Carinsurance.com sold for 49 million. Insurance.com, I believe, don't quote me, you can look in it. I want to say it was a 23-year-old that owned that, sold for $35 million, the original owner. Vacation Rentals sold for $35 million. Privatejet.com, $30 million. And the list goes on. I know that like business.com sold for 7 million, then 350 million. Now, this is not income claims. We're just giving you an idea of how things work. Yes, you can buy domain names, even domain names that are a little funky. Like we have Receiver. It's spelled a little different.
Right.
You build it into a brand, it's worth money. So the reason why we want to discuss this, like there are some people, which by the way, I know of one of them that lives in Miami. This is all he does. He's a domain broker. This guy buys and sells domain names, and I believe he makes anywhere between 10 to 20 million. I would love to have him on just because. But this I can get my mind around because it's an address. NFT, I get it. I get NFTs. Matter of fact, with Spartera, we're making the products an NFT for validation reasons. And I get it. I understand that. These are actual addresses on the web. So you can just imagine why the value is there. More importantly, if it's short, if it's a one namer, that's big because those are worth the most. What do I mean by business.com?
Yeah, voice.com.
Insurance.com. Right. So if you're able to do that, another one is a keyword phrase is worth money. We have quite a few keyword phrases for many reasons as to why those are worth money. And then if you have two names, or two words rather, that's worth money. So it's worth more if you can have one name for obvious reasons, easier to remember. But once again, if you have two, that's actually worth a lot. It is not uncommon for me, like Link Boss, for instance. When I purchased Link Boss, literally weeks later, I was given an offer. And weeks later, it already had value to it. Meaning they said, GoDaddy does it. A lot of the companies do it. They'll give you an appraisal. So they just said, based on this name, it's worth this. So you got to remember that when you go into it. Now, is .net, .org and stuff like that worth as much? No. They can be worth money, of course, especially as a package, but no. .com is still king. .com is the one that people are normally going to want.
Nope. That's right.
So I would tell you, and by the way, if you have any questions or you want to be part of the conversation, or if you're have a testimonial of this, like you had a domain name and you sold it, how many people do you know, or how many things do you know you can spend, let's even say it was 10, 12 bucks. You can purchase something for 12 and in 30 days possibly sell it for 10x or beyond. Like this is a little harder, obviously. However, I will tell you this. If people, for whatever reason, I have, pharmaceutical are like interested in Spartera. So there was one that came over, but they never gave us a price. Would I ever sell it? I mean, if it looked like this, I would. But the price is in the eye of the beholder. Think of paintings. Think of NFTs. Why are some NFTs going for the money that you're hearing, and other ones they mint them and they're out that money and they no offers, no nothing yet, right?
Right.
So the eye is in the beholder. If they see the value, they're going to pay it. There was a woman that was recently in Business Week that she made a painting of, who is the chef that, I hate to say this, but he committed suicide. Can't think of his name.
I don't know.
If anyone knows, throw it in there.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't. Well, anyways, she made a painting of him, very artsy, like this massive size painting, and she got millions for it. Is it like, or maybe it was 700,000. It was a lot of money.
Right.
Remember, if somebody wants it bad enough, there was a gentleman that, what's that?
That's the thing. Like, it's what the market's going to pay. You know what I mean? Like, it's what for Loud, for example, I wanted Loud Performance. I had Loud Performance products.
That's definitely worth a lot of money.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, I went and had to buy Loud Performance, How
much you want to sell it for?
I don't want to sell it. I mean, I can tell you, I ended up paying $1,600 for it, which which I was okay with.
How much did we pay for Grub, guys? I can't remember.
Oh man,
it was an auction.
It was.
My wife would know.
I want to say
pay 12.
Yeah, wasn't it a few hundred?
I want to say it was north of 500, but it was under 1,000.
1,000, exactly. I was saying it was somewhere right around 5 or 7 or something like that.
Yeah, and it was.
My head.
Live auctions are better only because let me explain like a live auction. Now, I'm going to give a little secret here, like how I won a house once. I'm in a live auction. Ooh, this is a big secret too, by the way, but here it is. Sometimes you can train a person. So here was the deal. Like in negotiations, we used to do it all the time. And what I did was, it was a live auction. You don't see who the person is that's bidding against you.
No.
Right. And, but at the end of the day, here's what happened. I'm in this bid and this guy keeps outbidding me. I'm like, crap. I'm in a bidding war, but it's only him and I. 3 others fell out. First of all, you had to be vetted. I forget when this was. I want to say it was 2014, I believe. And but here was the deal. So we're bidding, and what happened was this guy started bidding like 200 more than me. And then I'm like, oh, watch what I did. So then I did 100. And then he bid 100 more than me. Then I did 50. Then he bid 150 more than me. I was training him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, folks, this is like, you do tactics like this. Now, mind you, it's legal and it's ethical and it's all that. Right. We're in a bidding war.
Right.
Domain names can be like this. So I want you to pay attention with this. So what happened was I'm in this, my wife is, the way my office was downtown Jamestown, we had where she was down into the corridor area. That's where the receptionist was. Mine was all glass. I was in this glass office like thing. And I'm like, she's looking at me because I get hyped up. I stand a lot. That's why I have a standing desk. And I used to wear out my carpet from pacing. I used to wear a headset. But anyways, I'm like, I got this guy trained. Sure enough, he's upping me by 50 to $100. So I did it again. So watch what happens here. What I did, once I got down to like 10 seconds, and it was nerve-wracking.
Oh, yeah.
I had super high-speed internet when it was still kind of clunky. In 2014, everybody's got broadband now, but back then I was on fiber, so it was lightning fast. Okay. So what I did, so I knew I had that advantage because he was always a little slower. I would make my bid, and then it would take like a half a minute for him to outbid me.
Right.
So all of a sudden I waited, and what I did, right in the 13 seconds left, and I was sweating. Like I just felt the nerve. Like it was so amazing. But I'm actually starting to like.
Right.
So what I did is I raised it by, get this, $2,000. Now your first thought would be, why would you do that? Here's why I did that. The rules, which you gotta know, make sure you study rules. When you go to a website, actually read the terms of service. Like, have you ever done that? Like, you really need to do this. What I remembered was the fact that they will only go over where the last bid was. So let's say I put 2,500. I outbid them by 2,500, right?
Right.
But what did I do for the last 15, 20 minutes? I trained him.
Right.
I trained him to think I'm just going to outbid him by $300-400 or a couple $100. So he probably put his bid. I can't remember where I ended up, but he probably put his bid at 500 thinking he's done.
Yep.
And get this, he fell into my little web. And I don't mean this like to be mean, but because he waited for the last thinking I got him because he has no time to bid now.
Right.
I threw my bid at 2,500. He had no more time. So he did 500, said, so here's what's going to happen on his side. Can you imagine if I'm sweating, you can imagine him. You're outbid. Oh my God. So he put it up to 700. You were outbid. Put it up to 800. You're outbid. It finally timed him out and it was done. I won the house. So domain auctions can be like that. So with Grub Guys, remembering the wheelhouse thing, it was kind of like that, where we're in this bid. Nobody's bidding anymore. It was already at this one bid. Believe it or not, my friend, some people, and I don't want to say stupid, but some people like, let's go to lunch. We won that sucker before they win.
Right.
Have you ever seen somebody in a race and they start slowing down because they see the fin? Are you crazy? Like the race is not over until the ribbon is broke.
It used to drive me crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I love Supercross. So I watch a lot of motocross. And the guy would be out front by 30 seconds or whatever. He's waving at the crowd, and you know what I mean? Like slowing down, like taking this, like, kind of like, lap before he crossed the finish line, someone come in and pass him at the last turn and win. And, you see that every once in a great while, but dude, you always gotta get across the line before you.
Exactly. I even think that there was some car races where they thought it was the last lap. And then it's like, holy crap, it's not. And then, no, it was a motorcycle race. I know exactly which. Anyways, but yeah, you get the point. So listen, at the end of the day, domain names, and get this, there's a way now that you can actually own it, not rent it anymore. And know this, folks, some of you might be saying, well, hang on, I got a comment.
Yeah, there's a
It's
couple
that
comments.
same weird thing from YouTube. Do you have a comment on your side?
Like a couple from Facebook, like from Norm, very interesting. And he thought Grub Gods was bought for $10 at the auction.
Oh no, God no.
Yeah, exactly.
No, hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah. There was no $10 is just a domain name.
That's what we pay every year. That's what we pay. That's our rent.
So to Norm's point, Grub Guys was owned by somebody else. It was a company in Florida.
Yeah, it was Southeast.
Yep. And I made sure that there was some things in place before we did that because they did file bankruptcy.
Right.
And they weren't what we were.
They were like a burger joint or something, weren't they?
No, well, they did, like, believe it or not, they did some delivery, but they started rating food. Like they would rate food. By the way, if somebody wants their question to come across the stream, just make sure you permission StreamYard, and we can bring it over because I don't see them unless it comes through. You, on the other hand, D, if you watch, you'll see them. So no, Norm, the way Grub Guys was, it was owned by somebody else. It was in what's called or referred to as a domain auction. And I'm going to give people what they need to do, and we'll wrap this up. In a domain auction, it's just that. It's an auction. Highest bidder gets it. And it's a time thing. So Grub Guys was in this timed auction. So we ended up getting it. I want to say it was $550. My wife would know, which is still cheap.
Right.
Right now, it's worth about $100,000 or more because now it's got a business on it. And it's probably worth way more than that. We should probably get it, get the appraisal. So remember, if you have a domain name and you build something on it and create a brand, it's going to obviously be worth more. Any other questions? If you have a domain name and you build something on it and create a brand, it's going to obviously. I hear
you're good.
And let's go here. So so domain names. Why do I feel like they're like a new NFT? I'll tell you why. A domain name right now is a real thing. It's real. It's not a pixelated picture. And I get that. By the way, I 100% get NFTs. I do know that I have clients right now that they just don't understand it yet. But if you do jump on board, just know it's real. Yes, Bitcoin and all that. I still am like, However, we saw what happened. Now, all of a sudden, the financial institutions are recognizing it. But anything that has an actual value to it. So what do I mean by that? When you have a domain name, that is it. Like, let's use Sardinian Diet. SardinianDiet.com. Nobody else can use that but me. And we're talking about the whole world.
Right.
Like, that's a location and it's their diet. It's been studied. So if you're somebody, it's like, you know what? I've got this whole blue movement, blue zone. Sardinian Diet would be perfect. I'm from Sardinia or whatever the case is, or my cuisine is mainly Sardinian. Maybe you'd want to own that.
Right.
Right. So, and I did plan on doing something with it at the end of the day, but we have a plethora of domains that there's not enough time in a day, a week, a month, a year. It just is what it is. Would I sell some of them? Of course. So with a domain name, now you have the ability to actually buy a domain name and own it, no longer rent it. But the question was, well, if you rent a domain name, how can you sell it? Because you are the owner register.
Right.
It's kind of like what's that?
Right. I mean, think about your house. You know what I mean? For example, like, you pay property tax on it. If you don't pay, domain property tax, you don't keep your house, but you own it. It's no different.
Exactly. So very exciting with this. Exciting news is coming out on domain names. But I will tell you this, domain names, the risk is so little. That's why I love them, because you're only paying a few, dollars for them.
Right. Well, of course, it depends on how many you have.
And how many you have, of course. Yeah. A lot of times we built out, we own like Campaign Cannon, Grub Guys, Host Fox, figure.
I mean, like, I probably own about 30. You know what I mean? Honestly, Do
you know what Loud is worth right now?
I do not.
Okay. I'm going to guess probably $100K. I would guess. I mean, maybe more. I mean, as a business, it's worth more than that. But I
Right.
mean, the domain itself, the domain name, now that you have a business built on it, it's actually worth a lot more. Matter of fact, let me bring this back up and then we'll wrap it up. Like, for instance, business.com and stuff. Now it's got it's a money-making website.
Right.
So if your domain name makes money, it's actually worth more. So here's the last thing I want to get. And if you guys have questions, feel free to put it in the comments. A lot of people would say, I just don't understand why somebody would pay this for a website when you can build a website. Keep in mind, a website is a business. So we talk about creators all the time. Get out there and create, because if you really think about it, the exit on something that you own digitally could be a pretty decent exit. Some of these prices that you see on the board, by the way, this is just a few that we brought up that we found. There's just thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of domain names that have sold in the millions. It's just the way it is, right? Like I said, Oprah Winfrey spent $7 million or more for her domain name, opposed to trying to sue them because it is her name. So there are some ways to get your name back. Like there's a gentleman that's using mine and it's not his real name. So I have to go legally to get it. I have .net. I want .com. That's what I'm talking about. All right. Is there any other questions? Anything that you want to add, Dee?
No. I just think that domain names are one of the most important key things that you do if you're trying to set up any business.
Huge.
Having it short, concise, sweet, to the point, whatever, you know what I mean? That's what people look at. And I can't put the value on .com enough.
No, you can't. So .com, let's recap. So .com everything, and then try to get the others, .net. They're called extensions. So .net, .org, whatever.
Right.
If I were people, I would stay away from GoDaddy. I swear that they're hijacking. I'll leave it at that. I like Namecheap. There's some others. Obviously, we have HostFox. We are going to offer it within a couple of weeks. Right now, we're going through the whole ICANN thing to be the reseller. We have more training on this to go deeper, but here's the deal. You could literally buy domain names today. You can even go into auctions. You can go into auctions and buy domain names. So what do I mean by that? If you have a business idea and the domain name is taken, see if there's a website on it first. If there isn't any, chances are you can buy that domain name.
Yeah. And sometimes wherever you're looking to buy the domain name from might also have a button to make an offer on it.
Yes.
Or to find out more. You know what I mean? It never hurts to see to see what you can do or can't do with it.
Flyaway.com was, when I was speaking in Charlotte, I had it up on the jumbo. They had a big screen, right? So my slide deck was up on the big screen, and flyaway.com was in the market for 110,000, 100 or 110. And I asked everybody, who thinks this is a good deal? And only one or two people raised their hands. I've talked about this before, but only a couple raised their hand because they get it.
Right.
Do you realize that? Flyaway? Can you just hear that in a commercial? So right. I want people to remember that when you choose a domain name, by the way, don't use hyphens. Like, right. Nobody's going to remember to do that.
That's right.
If you're running ads and you never have to give the domain name out, you're running an ad and it's going to take them to that page. Okay, whatever. However, the best thing you could do is onename.com. It's going to be tough today. Or twonames.com, can even be three, especially if it's a keyword phrase, meaning like a phrase that you can easily remember. Flyaway.com is still a keyword phrase. It's 2 words, makes it very valuable. And you can just hear the commercials. You need a flyaway? Go to flyaway.com. I can hear it now, right? Who knows what they ended up getting it for? But 100,000 for an airline industry. If I was a marketer, if we were the marketing company for that airline and we were bidding for their business, I would have just said, by the way, if you choose us, we are going to recommend that you buy this domain name. We do not own it. I think that would be conflict of interest, of course.
Right.
We don't own it, but man, we could do a lot of good with that. Right.
Oh, yeah.
I almost think they would go with a company that can think outside of the box and have their interest at heart and explain to them, hey, we might be able to get even less. Make an offer for 50,000. By the way, just because there's a domain name listed for 100,000 or 50,000, 25,000 or 2 million
doesn't mean
less. Yeah, they'll take less for the most part. Some of them are fixed. A fixed auction means here's our price. That's what we want. Here's another thing that's cool. And then we're going to wrap it up. Make sure when you buy a domain name, rent a domain name, right? When you have ownership of the domain time or the domain name period, make sure that your contact info is always up to date. Can you imagine somebody's going to want to make an offer of $2 million on your domain name and it goes to a bad email? Like, can you imagine that?
Right.
So always make sure wherever you are. The other thing you're going to want to make sure is don't let your domain name expire. You and I talked before this podcast, and I talked to you about somebody that had a domain name that Facebook was playing bully. I could have easily got him millions, like 2, 3, maybe more, because at the end of the day, they would have wrote a check, right? So they needed it. They were playing bully saying, hey, you're infringing on our trademark. Bullshit. They were not. 100%. Unfortunately, he let the patent go and he just let them have it, which is, don't let people do that. Make sure legally that if they're saying that they have the rights to that domain name, don't let people just bully you out of it. Domains are worth money. All right. That is it. We will see everyone soon. By the way, we did launch Own Your Monday inside of which we'll put in Link Boss. I'm sorry. Yeah, the group. How you get a hold of Own Your Mondays. That just helps you become financially free, create your own thing. By the way, in our space, it's a lot of this. Like right now, this digital era is where it's at. And for those that are watching, from domain names to digital assets to education, if you're not participating in this, I'm going to say this. How many of you have actually said, man, I wish I did this, when people are saying that about Bitcoin, right?
Oh, yeah.
But this is even more sexy. This is more tangible. It's real. When you create a digital product, when you create a digital course, and people need that info, that's real. It's real value in exchange, right?
Right.
Same with domain names, real value in exchange. If you really want a side hustle, get domain names, build a SaaS system on it, meaning a software as a service.
Right.
One that's in our wheelhouse has to do with financial, right?
Right.
We know that's going to change people's lives because it's going to bunk them on the head. When they're going to buy a car, is that the right one to buy? Or a house, is this the right? Your taxes, your receipts, everything all in one location. Do you think that there's going to be some people that say, you know what? I need that. I need that app. Today, the creator's economy is the new economy. This is where it's at. This is where things are going. Lastly, and I know this hasn't, well, it still has a little bit to do with domain names. You know that AI is a real thing. And this is the last comment I want to make. Jobs are being fulfilled by AI now. This is a fact. Here's some facts that I want to leave people with, and I want this to marinate in people's mind. And I don't want to use it as a scare tactic. I want you to wake up and say, you know what? It's my time. I've got value. Right now, I've been renting myself out by going to a job. Maybe it's time that you get a side hustle and make a business out of that. Maybe this is the time, right? So watch this. Right now, we already see that cash registers are going away. That's real. Right. And it's going to happen across the board. That self-checkouts. Here's the other thing. People that build stuff or make stuff like cars and automobiles, I don't know if you caught it. Now it's robotic. Those jobs are being replaced left and right. What I see is a demise, unfortunately, of blue-collar workers. So if I was somebody that fit into that field somehow, some way, including supervisors, I would be like, okay, there's a life expectancy on my career. There's a life expectancy. There's an expiration date on my job. You got to be able to innovate. You got to be able to grow. You got to be able to learn. Never stop learning, because today there's a bigger demand for it than ever, and it's in real time. So anyone that has knowledge, or you want to build a SaaS system, an app, don't think you can't do it. Were you ever in the software industry 5 years ago or 10 years ago? Could you ever thought, or did you ever think that you're going to be part owner of Embed Locker?
Yeah, no.
How sophisticated is Embed Locker?
Oh, dude, it's I mean, it's very sophisticated.
It's like beyond some people's
Right.
ability to think. So guess what you do, folks? You get people that know how to do it. That is the name of the game.
That's exactly right.
All right. This is, by the way, a subject matter that I love, and we all can go way deeper into this. And that's what's going to happen this weekend in Link Boss, the group. So if any of you want to go deeper with this type of subject matter, if you need help, here's one of the things that we're recommending, though. When you get into the group, introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you in your journey? Maybe you're a writer of a book. Okay. Maybe you're wanting a course or a book, or maybe you've got this product idea. All of my kids are entrepreneurs. My son, I'm not going to say what he does just because, he is in law enforcement. He just created a business last week. Do you realize what that did for me? Like, oh my God. Because as much as I am proud of all of my kids, there's something about that entrepreneur gene and spirit and spark that just makes me giddy up a little more. I just thought it was amazing. An incredible business. My daughter works for a medical company. She has a side hustle.
Right.
Okay. My other son, same thing. The bottom line is this: you don't have to just quit your job. Start doing something now. Maybe it's going to start with domain names, and you're going to sell a few and make some money to help pay to get. But I will tell you this. What do you think is harder? Creating a digital company or a brick and mortar? When I say harder, they enter to the barrier.
Barrier to entry?
Barrier to entry, meaning cost.
I mean,
what do you think is a little harder?
The brick and mortar anymore?
By far. Now, mind you, we've got hundreds of thousands into Embed Locker. Not always can you go immediately into that. But lastly, I would like to say this, but if you don't, you could always get an investor. Today, it's so much easier to find money for business. It truly is. And then you got Kickstarter and all these cool tools that we're going to train on inside Link Boss. So if you're not a member, feel free to join. It's free. You just have to ask or answer a few questions. And what we're going to be doing now that it is March, we're really amping up like the entrepreneur product creation movement. So already until next time, next Wednesday, 8:30. Soon we're going to choose a time in the evening and a date. Stand by for that. Anyone that's in Link Boss is going to get notified, including Own Your Mondays. So Saturday, you're going to be notified that program opens up inside Link Boss, the group. You can't get it and live there. And by the way, it's 100% free. Once again, you and I, we want to create a movement. We want to see people grow. Right. We want to see people not have to move out of the area that they live in. You can do everything right from your home. You can do a side hustle to an absolutely $1 million business unequivocally right from your home. People are doing it every day. Until next time,
we'll see you.
We'll see you. Peace, everybody. Have a great weekend. By the way, we are going live Friday, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Friday.
Yep.
Morning. So we'll see you Friday morning.